What is up, DS3 TV? We are back for another video. This one is another always Sarcastic Productions video, and this is Zahak, the Serpent King, and yeah, let's get into it. And yeah, get into another miscellaneous myths video, and let's get into the video. Also, you can put videos down in the comment section down below, and I will react to them. And also subscribe to the channel. I want to get 1,000 subscribers by my birthday, September 13th, and let's get into it. Thank you guys for 950 subscribers. I am super happy about that. And yeah, let's get into it and play. Oh boy.
Snakes are honestly fine. A little slithery, kinda hard to read, but broadly inoffensive. But there's something about him that just tickles the imagination, you know? You can't walk 5 feet these days without tripping over a mythological snake with crazy anomalous properties. Maybe they're the feathery forefather of humanity, or a many-colored harbinger of rain, or an eldritch abomination aiming to devour the sun, or any number of other slithery boys wending their coils through human mytho-history. Something about their sleek design just speaks to us, you know? But while mythical snakes span the whole moral spectrum, if there's one title that just screams evil, it's Serpent King. Nobody good has ever held the title Serpent King, and if you want proof, let's go back about 1,000 years to the opening chapter of the famous Persian epic the Shahnameh. Written by the poet Ferdowsi between 977 and 1010 CE, the Shahnameh, literally the Epic of Kings, is the national epic of Greater Iran and a very, very important piece of literature. It's also long as balls, but conveniently subdivides into a lot of smaller stories for easier consumption. Here's one of them. So the story begins with a quick rundown of some ancient mythical kings and all the cool stuff they did, mostly important civilization things like inventing clothes and fire and irrigation, you know, basic stuff like that. This line of kings does pretty well for itself until it produces Yamshid, who does really well for himself. So well, in fact, that he decides he's basically God and starts having people worship him. This is generally considered to be unwise and has some unintended consequences. See, in Zoroastrianism, to put it very simply, the Earth is basically a constant battleground between the forces of good and evil. Specifically, it's a proxy war between the beings Ahura Mazda, creator deity and ultimate good guy, and Angra Mainyu, later called Ahriman, the source of all evil and creator of various evil spirits called devas. Not to be confused with the devas in Hinduism, very different concept.
Very, very different. This is these two look very, very different.
In this model, it's the duty of humanity to do good and bring happiness because it bolsters the forces of good and helps in the cosmic battle against Ahriman. In contrast, doing bad stuff tips the scales the other way and empowers Ahriman to do more bad stuff. Now, by the time the Shahnameh was written at the turn of the 11th century, the dominant religion in Persia was Islam, which had locally overtaken Zoroastrianism a few centuries earlier. So the poet Ferdowsi was writing from an interesting position. The ancestral Iranian religion of Zoroastrianism was no longer widely practiced, and some of that culture was in danger of being erased. So similar to how the Prose Edda frames the Norse gods as something old and distant, the Shahnameh is framed mythologically while still actively preserving these ancient and culturally significant stories. But anyway, long story short, Yamshid does a big no-no and in the process tips the local cosmic balance towards evil. Ahriman gets a nice little power boost and starts sniffing around to cause some mischief. So he zips out into the desert to the kingdom of Thasus, ruled by the wise and just King Mirtas. Now Mirtas has a beloved son, Zahak, and Ahriman rolls up to the palace disguised as a nobleman and tells Zahak that he should enter a covenant with him, and if he does, he'll raise his head above the sun. Now Zahak is a nice boy, maybe a little bit gullible, so he thinks, Willikers, mister, that sounds pretty nifty, and agrees. Step 1, kill your dad.
Willikers.
Zahak doesn't really want to do that, but a deal's a deal, so he and Ahriman set a trap for Mirtas and kill him. Now Zahak is the king of Thasus. Nice! Ahriman teaches him some nifty magic and encourages him to be evil, but Zahak's not all bad. He's not a great king, but, you know, he's trying his best. So Ahriman changes tactics and zips around the back to change out his Groucho glasses and enters the palace in a different disguise, this time as a young man who offers to be a cook. Zahak doesn't see the harm in it and agrees, and Ahriman wastes no time in whipping up a meal fit for a king. Specifically, he changes the formerly vegetarian menu to include meat, and Zahak is so impressed by this dietary shift that he has the cook summoned before him so he can grant him a boon, and Ahriman asks only that he be allowed to kiss the king's shoulders. Well, we don't kink shame in this palace. Zahak agrees, and he probably shouldn't have, because after the deed is done, Ahriman is swallowed up by the earth and 2 venomous snakes sprout from Zahak's shoulders. Fun times. Well, Zahak obviously wants these snake shoulders out of his life, but they can't find any way to get rid of them. Enter Ahriman version 3, this time disguised as a learned scholar, who tells Zahak that the only way to tame a case of the old snake shoulders is to feed those bad boys human brains. Now, obviously, having a king with snake shoulders who eats human brains is not so good for the kingdom.
It probably wouldn't be the best. I mean, you know, it's kind of hard to get people listening to you eating human brains, I would assume.
Begins to spread about this absolutely terrifying Snake King, which is actually good news for the people back in Persia who've been dealing with their own evil king for a good few centuries now. Rebel forces congregate in Thasus and declare Zahak the new Shah, and an army musters to march against Yamshid, who sees the writing on the wall and books it. He manages to evade capture for a good 100 years or so before they eventually catch him and saw him in half. Tough break, buddy. So now Zahak the Serpent King, or as I've taken to calling him, Johnny Snake Shoulders, is the Shah of Persia, which is great if the goal is making the world an exponentially shittier place to live. Eventually, things get so bad that Ahura Mazda sits up and takes notice notice and sets a plan in motion to get things back on track. Yamshid's got a few surviving descendants rattling around, and thanks to a little divine intervention, one of them has a son named Faradun. Not so coincidentally, that night Zahak has a terrible nightmare where a young man kills him with a mace shaped like a cow's head. He wakes up and demands an explanation from his advisors, who reluctantly inform him that it sounds like there's a prophecy that he's going to be overthrown and destroyed by a man named Faradun. Well, you know how these evil king types get about prophecies. Zahak immediately starts scouring the land for Faradun. Faradun's mother catches wind of this and hides him in a forest, where he's raised by a magic cow called Permaya. Unfortunately, after a few years, the forest isn't safe anymore, so she comes back to collect him and heads off to an isolated mountain peak where a hermit can take care of him instead. And just in time, too, since Zahak finds the forest, learns that Faradun is gone, and gets so angry that he kills Permaya and everything else in the forest, turning it into a barren desert. Zahak continues to strengthen his army and search for Faradun, but that doesn't do his confidence any favors, and he starts to worry that he might be a bad king. No. What?
No, never. Couldn't be a bad king.
No! So naturally, he demands his citizens reassure him that he's actually a good king doing a really good job. Obviously, they do what he says because snake shoulders, but dissent is beginning to spread. This comes to a head one day when a blacksmith named Kava marches straight into the palace and demands an audience. Kava's had 17 sons, see, but 16 of them have been sacrificed to the king's snake shoulder situation, and now his last son has been chosen to die too. He demands that Zahak spare his last son, and Zahak actually agrees. Then he asks,
Yeah, because that's kind of, doesn't that kind of like... How did he get picked 16 times? Like, how did he get his kids picked 16 times at this point?
Kava if he'll sign this official paperwork stating that Zahak is a good king, actually, to which Kava responds by ripping the paperwork into confetti and striding out of the palace while everyone is too stunned to stop him. He heads straight for the city square, tears off his blacksmith apron, uses it as a banner to rally the people in rebellion, and leads an army out of the city to go find the prophesied hero who will deliver them from the Serpent King. Give me this movie, Hollywood.
I need this movie. This is a great movie.
Cowards! Meanwhile, Faradun has grown into a responsible and wise young man, returned home to his mother and learned of his royal lineage and his destiny to destroy the Serpent King. He's ready to fulfill his destiny and is frankly getting kind of impatient waiting, because he wants to kill the evil king now, but his mom says it's not safe to go alone, so he's gonna have to wait. This is around the time the massive army of rebels rolls up on the front line to ask if Faradun can come out and play. Now that they've got the manpower and the prophecy on their side, Faradun gears up in some kingly armor and has the rebels forge him a mace. And in honor of his old nursemaid, the business end of the mace is shaped like a cow head. Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
Yeah.
So they march to the city, finding it actually mostly undefended, since coincidentally Zahak is out with his army looking for Faradun. The people rally behind them and they invade the palace, defeating the Devas Zahak left to guard the place and setting Faradun on the throne as the new Shah. Now Zahak is none too pleased about this when he returns. He and his army besiege the city and there's a very dramatic battle, which our heroes win. Faradun whacks Zahak with his mace and is just about to kill him when he's stopped by Sraosha, a servant of Ahura Mazda, who tells him to imprison Zahak on Mount Damavand instead. Faradun follows his advice and binds Zahak under the mountain for all time. And so, thanks to a prophesied true king, a charismatic rebel leader, and a battle scene so ridiculous I literally cannot believe they haven't made this trope goldmine a movie yet, so ends the tumultuous tale of Johnny Snake Shoulders.
I would have definitely have watched it. Like, if this was a movie, I would have watched it. Like, that would have been everything for me. This would have been like probably my favorite movie to watch. What? This myth has everything. Fallen heroes, evil emperors, prophesied chosen ones, hot-headed rebel leaders, and a single female character who's never canonically named. Yes, everything.
Thousand lies and a good disguise.
Seriously, Hollywood, this is everything you love. Yes, this really is. Shout out to the one king who forced a bunch of demons to teach him how to write. You the real MVP.
Hit him right between the eyes, hit him right between the eyes when you...
Pretty good. Yeah, pretty good video. Didn't know about this, but yeah, more you know. So yeah, talk to you guys in the next video. Also subscribe to the channel. Want to get 1,000 subscribers by my birthday, and also recommend me videos down in the comment section down below that you want me to watch. And yeah, talk to you guys in the next video tomorrow, and yeah, talk to you guys later. Peace.